Hi, welcome back to Not So Obvious Watches. I'm Pete McComble. Today I want to talk about one of my biggest watch buying mistakes and the lesson I learnt from it. The good news is not a huge mistake, but I figured I'd pass it on anyway. I'm not a big one for living a kind of life of no regrets. I think that it is important that we look back and kind of own our screw-ups. One, because we learn from it, and two, it just makes us better human beings. And if Wiki Watch Leaks is correct, TGV might be about to learn that lesson again, but that's fodder for another video. Now back to me. From the very moment I started getting into watches, I was immediately attracted to vintage watches. I'm always been into older things. I've always been into things that are a little bit beaten up. And so it probably comes as no surprise that I was into vintage watches. I'm also something of a medium risk kind of guy. So what I mean by that is I'm prepared, whether it's in restoring a car, whether it's in choosing some sort of hobby or some sort of event or some sort of sport to do, or whether it's buying a watch, I'm happy with the idea that there's a reasonably high chance of failure. I don't think it's a challenge unless it is more than likely that you won't succeed. That said, I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to risk my life. I'm not going to risk my financial future necessarily on things which are highly likely to fail. So I don't jump off mountains wearing a batwing suit. I don't try and set land speed records. I don't dive with white sharks with no cage. And I don't spend thousands of dollars on some obscure website I've never heard about buying a watch. I limit the amount I spend so that whilst I'm prepared to take a reasonably high likelihood of failure, I keep the consequence pretty low. So overall, medium risk kind of guy, medium risk kind of vintage watch collector. And in general, this has paid off for me in spades. This has resulted in me, particularly with my sort of little side collection of collecting vintage Alpinas. This has worked for me brilliantly, and I've been able to put together a collection at a price that I, looking back, can't believe how little I've spent and how happy I am with these watches. So it's been a success. That said, there has been failures, and today I'm going to talk about my single biggest failure. So one of the very first vintage watches I purchased was this little 1960s vintage Longines. It was sold as a 1966. The research seems to indicate that would be about right, and the images that I got indicated that the watch had been beaten up, but only appropriately for its age, and it's really what you'd expect. Now, I can't find the original ad, and I can't find a lot of the shots that came with it. I did find a couple, and I'll put those up now. And they show a watch which has, got a bit of brassing coming through, and it's got the kind of damage that you'd expect. So I was unsurprised. I did have some concerns about the movement. I asked for some photos of the movement to be sent to me, and they actually they gave me some confidence. They gave me an idea that, okay, so I'm buying a watch that's been around for a little bit, but it looks genuine, so I spent my couple $100, got it sent to me. When it came back, it was everything it was shown, but it was so much less than what was not shown to me. Now, to explain what I mean by so much less than was shown to me, I'm just going to shut up now and show you some better pictures of the dial. As you can see, someone's refinished the dial essentially with a house painting brush, and it is appalling. As soon as I opened the package and I had a look inside, it became apparent that, I'd essentially been deceived, and I had to some extent allowed myself to be deceived. I had been misled by some cues that seemed to indicate that the watch was what I expected it to be, and I had not then chased down things that I should have chased down. So I learned from this. Some of the things I learned was it's one thing to ask to have a good look at the movement. It's one thing to have a look at things like hallmarks. What I'm asking for now is, if I'm going to buy a watch, I ask for high-res images of, for example, an indice attachment, so that you can see whether there's been refinishing where the indices have been attached. Because an artful, kind of slightly angled, blurry shot through a double-domed crystal can hide an enormous number of sins. You get distracted by, for example, the pricing on the case. It is what you expect it to be, therefore you kind of throttle back on your investigations elsewhere. The image was artfully shot with the brand names and everything on the dial all cleverly out of focus, but you don't really notice that because you're not looking at that. And then when the watch comes, you find out that you missed out. So I've added some things to what I look at when I'm buying a watch. I'm probably going to come up with a video about that in a couple of months' time, maybe in a year's time, when I reckon that I'm actually in a better place to advise people about this. I'm still building my own toolkit. So keep an eye out for that, but it's not coming very soon. The other thing I would like to point out to you is this did not mean my system failed. This did not mean that my watch collecting strategy, my medium risk watch collecting strategy, was wrong. I expected that there would be fails. They were built into my consideration. So if you have a system that says every now and then something's going to fail, if something failed, your system wasn't wrong. It was a predictable result. So I've kept buying. I noticed this was one of the very first watches I bought. I've kept following that strategy. I've learnt a little bit more, and I have not had any more fails like that. Have I bought pristine watches? Absolutely not. My watches have all, a bit like me, been beaten around the head with the ugly stick a few times. They've taken a punch in their life. That's okay. In that way, they kind of reflect me. Now, you might not like that. You might like watches which are new old stock and that look as though they've just come out of the safe yesterday. That's fine. Go right ahead. You buy those for your collection. That's not what I want. That's why these watches are mine and your watches are yours, because we want different things. But the important thing is that we get what we want and we get what we expected. I didn't get what I wanted. That's why this was a fail. I've learnt from it. I try and do better, but I haven't changed my approach. What I'd be really interested in is, what about you guys? Have you had similar fails? Have you tried to buy a watch off the internet and just completely screw it up? Hopefully, if you have, you were a bit like me. You didn't lose that much. But I'm interested to hear your stories. I've been Pete McConville. This is Not So Obvious Watches. If you hang around for a little while, a card's going to come up with my Instagram handle and my email address. Please feel free to get in contact with me. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. You'll notice I don't do wristwatch. If you want to see what watches I own and what my collection looks like, go check it out on Instagram. Also, please subscribe to this video. Please subscribe to this channel. I am 3/4 of the way, almost exactly, to my goal of 1,000 subscribers. Once I get there, I'll reset, but at the moment it's 1,000 subs. So thank you very much for watching this. Please subscribe, and I'll catch you later. Bye.